All right. I think we are good. What's up, YouTube? I'm back. This is going to be a short one. Y'all already know that I'm not into this YouTube thing like that. I just look at this as another means of spreading information to the people so that way they can get an understanding about what's going on when it comes down to the financing industry, because that's what I do. I'm into the financing, right? So I wanted to touch base with you guys in regards to syndication, right? So this is the topic for today is syndication. I would recommend, if you don't know what a syndication is definitely look it up. Obviously, this is something that you don't need me to do. This is something that you can do with among yourselves, within your own communities, people that you can actually trust, that you can work together with. Now, when it comes down to a syndication works where you have a group of people. Typically, you have a manager, someone who manages what's called the syndication, and then you have other people who would be considered the LPs. So you have your manager and then you have your LPs. Now, the manager is considered the GP, which is the general partner. Okay? The LP are considered the limited partners. However, it's based upon the percentage that is invested who determines who gets the larger piece of the pie. It can be divided amongst evenly amongst the group. However, the GP is the one who's managing the entire operations. The LPs, which are the limited partners, are pretty much are like silent investors. So, as an example, I'm currently working on a fund. Now, the fund is opposite of what the actual syndication is. Now, a fund involves typically accredited investors. Accredited investors are people who are or have over the past 2 to 3 years who have, as an individual, has made $250,000 per year consecutively for at least 2 years as an individual. And as a couple, $300,000 total per year for the past 2 or more consecutive years. Or who has a net worth of $1.5 million. This is what is classed as a accredited investor. Okay? So these are the particular investors that I would personally be looking for who would accommodate in regards to the fund that I'm actually building at this time. Okay? Now, so the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, they require that anyone who gets involved within the fund, in other words, purchasing shares within a corporation, that they be accredited. That's just one of the regulations under the Rule D, right? So now that's higher level. That's pretty much the next level. But underneath that, you have what's called a syndication. So with the syndication, there's no particular rules. Anyone can invest. You don't have to have a set amount of income to be involved within a syndication. It's just that you make sure that whoever you're involved with when it comes down to the syndication is that these are people that you actually trust and that you can actually work with to generate an income through commercial real estate. Particularly, it can be done with residential, but particularly it's done with a commercial piece of property, right? So the syndication right? This is going to allow you, for example, I'm working on a piece of property that is worth about $6 million. Now, how the syndication would work, there's several different ways it can be done. So, from the instance of me being a commercial mortgage broker, so I can get up to 70% of loan to value. Some cases 80% loan to value of the entire value of the property that's being sold. So again, just to take that $6 million for instance, or for numbers' sake, let's just say $5 million the piece of property is worth, right? So 70% of that $5 million, you're looking at about $3.5 million. I may be off a bit, but I'm looking at about $3.5 million for that particular property, which is 70%. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's correct. I'm not a math whiz, but I would say I'm pretty decent at math. So $5 million piece of property, subtract 70%. Yeah, so I am accurate. So yeah, that's $3.5 million. So that means that the bank or my bank will cover up to $3.5 million on this particular syndication deal. Meaning the investors would only have to come in with $1.5 million to be able to close the deal. Plus closing costs. Closing costs typically is about 1%, depending on what the broker you're dealing with. Some cases it can be less than that. For instance, with my brokerage, we only do half a point at closing, so it's only 0.5%. So, meaning at closing, you would only have to come up with about at a point, you're looking at about $50,000. 50,000, was that 5 million? Subtract 99%. Yeah, so at 99%, that at one point that's $50,000. At a half a point, that's 25,000, right? On this particular deal alone. So you have the $50,000 at one point, 25,000 at a half a point. That's due at closing. So the firm runs all of the paperwork, does everything when it comes down to the appraisal, when it comes down to environmental, everything you can think of. This is full brokerage on this particular deal, right? So full brokerage. Now, at closing, the investors, whoever's involved, whether it's 1, 2, 3, how many investors can come up with the actual 1.5 million as well. So you have to show statement, typically the GP, right, which is the general partner who's managing the fund, would show that they have the $1.5 million on record to be able to close the transaction. So this is due at transaction closing to acquire the $5 million piece of commercial property. Some cases, depending on how many units, sometimes 50 plus 100 units, sometimes 100 units for this particular type of property. It just depends on where you're purchasing, right? I'm just giving you guys a general understanding of how this would work when it comes down to the syndication. So now, this particular one I'm looking at, it's about 80 units. It's about $5.6 million. So I'm just rounding it down just for numbers' sake, just to simplify this entire video. So it's about 80 units, which is $5.6 million, right? So let's just say it's being acquired at $5 million. So that means at closing, you would have to come up as the investors or the limited partners, the LPs, would have to come up with the $1.5 million to close on this deal, plus the, whether it's 1 point, 50,000 or half a point, just 25,000 at closing. right? So let's just say half a point, because that's what my firm does, is it's a half a point at closing. So that would be 1.5 million plus 25,000. So that's due at closing to be able to close this transaction. Now, this group, whether it's 1, 2, or 5, 10 individuals who came up with the $1.5 million, now you guys are controlling you're controlling about $5 million plus in real estate, right? Now, just for numbers' sake, let's just take the $5 million and let's say it's a cap rate, a capitalization rate, which is tells you the percentage of return that the investors are going to be getting on the property on an annual basis. So let's just say, for hypothetical sakes, that it is a 10% cap rate. So 10% cap rate at $5 million, right? You $5 million times 10%. So give or take, you're looking at about $500,000 in annual net operating income. That's called the NOI. So the NOI is the net operating income at 10%. So this is what you can expect. I'm just giving you guys rough numbers. If you want to get specifics, definitely leave a comment. If you have any questions, leave a comment. All right, we can get into more details. As I mentioned, this is just a rough video. I don't plan on being here long. Just kind of giving you, just sparking the minds of the individuals who have the mindset for this type of business, because this is not for everybody, right? So you're looking at about 500,000 annual income, right? So with the 500,000 annual income coming in from this commercial piece of property, let's just say that you have to pay the bank, which is called the debt services, every single month. Generally, when it comes down to the debt services, you're probably looking at say anywhere between 25 to 40% of that net operating income that's going to go towards the debt services, right? Usually the debt services is paid for within the debt service coverage ratio, and that's paid for before the net operating income. The net operating income typically is what comes into the investors. That means the bank's already paid for whatever is set aside to manage the property, paying the property managers, and maintenance for the property. Then the net operating income usually comes to those investors, whoever invested in the particular piece of property, right? So let's just say that that's $500,000 coming in for the investors. So that $500,000 coming in on an annual basis, and if that's 5 investors who came up with the 1.5 million dollars, right? So if you divide that 1.5 million by 5 investors, that's $300,000 a piece. So that means each investor initial investment at closing was roughly $300,000 a piece. Okay? Now, the net operating income is $500,000. So if you take that $500,000 and you divide that by 5, what does that give you? That gives you $100,000 for each investor. So, if each investor invested $300,000, there is a net operating income coming in every year of $500,000, meaning that each investor who invested the $300,000 gets $100,000, which is a ROI, return on investment, every single year on this particular property. Again, this is rough numbers, right? I'm not giving the exacts. I'm just trying to give you, like I said, I'm sparking the ideas of those people who can see this and be able to move forward. Again, if you have any questions, comments, leave it in the comment, right? This is only for a certain group of people. I'm only looking for those specific people. This is not for everybody. Because most people who are going to see this, they're going to be like, whatever, and I'm okay with that, right? I'm only trying to spark the minds of those certain group of people who understand this and who really would want to move forward and make some real money, right? Because we're making real money over here, right? Now, every year, those 5 investors can expect $100,000 a year apiece. That's if they split the profits. Or you could take that $500,000 and go put a down payment on another piece of property. That's for a whole nother video, right? But we're just keeping it simple on this video, right? Now, every year they would collect $100,000. How long would it take for that investor to get a return on their $300,000? 3 years. So that means after 3 years, those 5 investors would have recouped their initial investment. Every year after that, they are making a profit on their investment every single year after that. Typically, a commercial mortgage loan lasts about, maybe sometimes depending on what you're trying to sign up for, whether it's a 5 years, 8 years, maybe 10 years, right? So let's just say it's a 10-year loan. That means that after the 4th year, you're making $100,000 a year in income. Most people don't even make $100,000 a year on just working a regular job, right? And this is something that you don't have to. This is just passive income, right? So just to kind of give, like I said, I just want to give you guys a rough idea on the benefits of debt. This is positive debt, right? Because you have assets and you have liabilities. You can invest in assets, right? Those assets will bring a cash flow coming in on a monthly basis. You can invest in liabilities, which takes money away from you. So in this world, we're only dealing with assets or liabilities. Which one do you have, right? What's putting money in your pocket versus taking money out of your pocket? This is what the elites do. This is what people, high net worth individuals do. This is how they invest. This is how they make money. Their money make money while they are sleeping. All right? So like I said, this is not going to be long. I'm going to go ahead and cut this short. Just wanted to go ahead and drop a seed into the minds of the select few people who will watch this and see the value. Not everyone is going to see the value in this video, and I'm okay with that. All right, so that's it. I appreciate you guys' time. You guys have a great rest of your day. I might drop another video before the year's out. We're coming into the new year. Happy holidays for everyone. Peace.